Most men think a hug is just a hug, a quick greeting, a polite goodbye, something you do without really thinking about it. You walk in, wrap your arms around her for a second, pull away, and move on. No strategy, no awareness, no intention. But here's what most men don't realize. That one moment, that simple hug, can completely change how a woman feels about you. In fact, within just a few seconds of physical contact, her body is already forming an impression. Not based on what you said before, not based on how long you've been talking, but based on how that moment feels. And the problem is, most men are getting it wrong without even knowing it. They rush it. They hesitate. They hug in a way that feels either too weak or too forced, and without realizing it, they send the wrong signal. Because a hug is not just physical contact, it's communication. It tells her how confident you are. It tells her how comfortable you are with closeness. It tells her whether you feel present in the moment or unsure of yourself. And all of that happens without a single word being spoken. Research in human behavior shows that physical touch plays a major role in how people build trust and emotional connection. That means the way you hug her is not a small detail. It's one of the fastest ways to influence how she experiences you. But most men treat it like it doesn't matter. They don't think about their approach. They don't think about their timing. They don't think about how their body language feels from her perspective. And because of that, they miss one of the easiest opportunities to create attraction. Now here's the good part. This is not complicated. You don't need to change who you are. You don't need to memorize lines or learn anything unnatural. You just need to understand a few key details that most men overlook. In this video, I'm going to break down 4 simple rules that completely change how a woman experiences a hug. These are not obvious things. They're small adjustments that create a big difference. And once you understand them, you won't just hug the same way again. You'll start creating a different kind of reaction without even trying. Before we get into the rules, you need to understand why this matters so much. Because if you think a hug is just a small, forgettable moment, you're going to miss what's actually happening underneath. A hug is one of the fastest ways 2 people exchange emotional information. The moment you step into someone's space and make physical contact, your body starts communicating things your words never could. Your posture, your timing, your pressure, your energy, all of it is being read instantly, not consciously, but on a deeper level. That's how humans are wired. Before we get into the rules, you need to understand why this matters so much. Because if you think a hug is just a small, forgettable moment, you're going to miss what's actually happening underneath. A hug is one of the fastest ways 2 people exchange emotional information. The moment you step into someone's space and make physical contact, your body starts communicating things your words never could. Your posture, your timing, your pressure, your energy, all of it is being read instantly, not consciously, but on a deeper level. That's how humans are wired. Those answers shape her perception of you instantly. And once that perception is formed, it's hard to change. That's why this moment matters more than you think. Because it's not just a greeting. It's a test. Not in a dramatic way, not something she's consciously thinking about, but a subtle, automatic evaluation that happens in seconds. And the way you handle that moment either builds attraction or weakens it. Most men fail this without even realizing it. They approach without confidence, they hug without awareness, and they exit without intention. From their perspective, nothing seems wrong. But from her perspective, something feels slightly off, even if she can't explain it. And that feeling is enough to change everything. The good news is, once you understand what's actually happening, you can control this moment without forcing anything. You don't need to do more. You just need to do it better. And the first place this shows up is not even in the hug itself. It starts before you touch her. Now this is where things start to get interesting. Because what most men think is just a normal greeting is actually something much more important. The hug is a test, not a conscious test where she's thinking, let me evaluate him right now, but a subconscious one. The moment you move toward her, her body is already picking up signals and forming an impression before you even touch her. That means the moment doesn't start when your arms wrap around her. It starts the second she sees you coming. And this is where most men fail without realizing it. Think about how most guys approach this situation. They're unsure if it's a hug or a handshake. They hesitate slightly. Their body language becomes awkward. They either move too quickly to get it over with, or they delay just enough to create confusion. From their perspective, it's a small moment. From her perspective, it feels off. Because hesitation is one of the strongest signals the body can send. When your movements are uncertain, her body picks that up instantly. Not through logic, but through instinct. And instinct doesn't analyze, it reacts. If your energy feels unsure, her body doesn't register confidence, it registers doubt. Now compare that to a man who approaches differently. He sees her, holds natural eye contact, and walks toward her without rushing. His movement is steady. There's no confusion about what's about to happen. When he opens his arms, it feels natural, like something already decided. That difference is small on the surface, but it changes everything. Because before the hug even happens, her body has already started forming a feeling about the interaction. Research in communication psychology shows that a large percentage of emotional meaning is conveyed through body language rather than words. That means how you move toward her is already saying something before you say anything at all. Another detail most men miss is timing. If you open your arms too early, it feels forced. If you do it too late, it feels awkward. But when the timing is natural, when there's a brief moment where you're close enough that the hug is about to happen, but hasn't yet, it creates something important. Anticipation. And anticipation is what makes the moment feel real. So before you even think about the hug itself, understand this. You're already communicating. The question is, are you saying the right thing? Another detail most men miss is timing. If you open your arms too early, it feels forced. If you do it too late, it feels awkward. But when the timing is natural, when there's a brief moment where you're close enough that the hug is about to happen, but hasn't yet, it creates something important. Anticipation. And anticipation is what makes the moment feel real. So before you even think about the hug itself, understand this. You're already communicating. The question is, are you saying the right thing? So what does the right approach look like? It starts with your pace. Walk toward her calmly, not slow in an exaggerated way, and definitely not rushed. Just steady, natural movement that shows you're comfortable in the moment. When your pace is controlled, it signals confidence without needing to say anything. Next is your eye contact. Not a stare, not something intense, just a natural, warm look that shows you're present. That small detail communicates something very important. It tells her you're comfortable being seen, and that comfort allows her to relax as well. Then comes your body language. Your shoulders should be relaxed, your posture upright, and your movements smooth. No sudden changes, no hesitation. Everything should feel like a continuation of the moment, not something you're forcing to happen. And then there's timing. This is the part most men get wrong. You don't open your arms too early, and you don't wait until the last second. There's a natural moment when you're close enough that the hug is about to happen. That's when you open your arms. And right before contact, there should be a brief pause. Not something obvious, just a fraction of a second where you're close enough for her to feel your presence, but the hug hasn't closed yet. That small moment creates anticipation, and anticipation makes the interaction feel more engaging. This is not about overthinking. It's about awareness. When you approach with calm intention, when your movements are steady and your energy is relaxed, the hug feels natural before it even happens. And that changes how she experiences everything that comes next. Once the hug actually begins, the next thing that matters is something most men never think about: pressure. The way you hold her communicates more than you realize. It tells her how present you are, how confident you are, and how comfortable you are with the moment. And the difference between the right pressure and the wrong pressure is what separates a forgettable hug from one that actually creates a reaction. Most men fall into one of two extremes. They either hug too lightly or too tightly. When the pressure is too light, it feels empty. It's the kind of hug where your hands barely make contact, where it feels like you're holding back or unsure. From her perspective, that creates distance. It doesn't feel warm, it doesn't feel grounded, and it doesn't leave any impression. It feels like nothing. On the other side, when the pressure is too strong, it creates tension. Instead of feeling relaxed, her body tightens slightly. It can feel overwhelming, even if that's not your intention. And when that happens, the moment stops feeling natural. So the key is balance. The right pressure is firm but relaxed. Firm enough that she feels your presence, but relaxed enough that she never feels restricted. It should feel steady, not forced. Like you're comfortable holding her, not trying to control the moment. That balance creates something important: safety. When a woman feels safe in physical contact, her body relaxes. And when her body relaxes, the interaction becomes more natural, more fluid, and more connected. Another important detail is contact. Use your full hands, not just your fingertips. Your palms should rest naturally on her back, creating full, even contact. This makes the hug feel more complete and grounded. Fingertips, on the other hand, can feel uncertain or hesitant, and hesitation breaks the moment. Where you place your hands also matters. Higher on the back feels more respectful and light. Mid-back feels more comfortable and familiar. Both are fine, but what matters most is that your placement feels natural, not forced or awkward. Again, this is not about doing something complicated. It's about being present. When your touch is steady, when your pressure is balanced, and when your contact feels natural, the hug stops being just a quick interaction. It becomes something she actually feels. And that feeling is what creates the next shift. Now, this is where things become more subtle, but also more powerful. Because once your pressure is right, the next thing that shapes how the hug feels is your hand placement and the type of contact you create. Most men don't think about this at all. They just place their hands wherever they land and assume it doesn't matter. But small details like this are exactly what separate a neutral hug from one that actually creates a feeling. Let's start with placement. Where your hands rest on her back changes how the hug is experienced. When your hands are higher, around the upper back, it communicates warmth and lightness. It feels safe and easy, especially in early interactions. When your hands are placed more toward the middle of her back, it creates a slightly stronger sense of connection. It feels more grounded and more present. There's a subtle difference in how the body responds to that kind of contact. Neither is wrong. What matters is that it fits the moment. But here's the part most men completely overlook: the way your hands make contact. If you're using only your fingertips, or if your hands feel uncertain, the hug immediately loses its impact. It creates a sense of hesitation, even if you don't realize you're doing it. From her perspective, it feels incomplete. But when your palms are fully placed against her back, everything changes. Full contact creates a stronger sense of connection. It feels more intentional, more present, and more real. Your body is no longer holding back, and that difference is something she feels instantly. This isn't about pressure, it's about presence. Your hands should feel natural, relaxed, and open, not stiff, not gripping, just steady and grounded. That kind of contact allows the hug to feel balanced, which is exactly what creates comfort. Another small detail that makes a big difference is how still your hands are. If your hands move too much or feel restless, it can break the moment. But when they stay calm and steady, it reinforces that sense of stability. And stability is what allows the interaction to feel safe. When all of these small elements come together, the hug stops feeling mechanical. It starts to feel intentional. And that intention is what creates a deeper response. But even with perfect pressure and placement, there is still one element that most men completely ignore. And this is the one that changes everything. This is the part almost no man thinks about, but it's the one that creates the biggest shift. It's your breath. And the pause. Most men hug quickly. Arms go around, there's a second of contact, and then they pull away. The entire moment happens so fast that nothing has time to actually register. That's why it feels forgettable, because nothing was felt. But when you slow that moment down, even slightly, everything changes. The first thing is your breathing. When you're in the hug, take a slow, natural breath. Not something exaggerated, not something obvious, just a calm inhale that happens as you hold her. That single action affects more than you think. Human beings naturally mirror each other's physical states. When your body relaxes, her body picks up on that. When your breathing slows, her breathing begins to follow without her even realizing it. That's how connection forms. Because now you're not just touching, you're syncing. And when two people's bodies start to match in rhythm, it creates a sense of ease that feels natural and automatic. She may not understand why the moment feels different, but she will feel it. That's the key. Now, the second part is the pause. When the hug reaches its natural end, most men immediately pull away. They break the moment too quickly, and in doing that, they remove the emotional impact. Instead, hold for just 1 second longer. Not in a way that feels forced, just enough to let the moment settle. That extra second communicates something very specific. It shows that you were present, that you weren't rushing, and that the interaction had meaning. And that changes how she experiences it. Because now the hug doesn't feel like something you just did. It feels like something you shared. That difference is what creates a lasting impression. Another subtle effect of this is how it influences memory. When a moment is slightly extended, it becomes more noticeable. It stands out from everything else that happened. That's what makes it easier to remember later. And attraction is often built on what stays in someone's mind after the interaction is over. So when you combine calm breathing with that small pause, you create something most men never do. A moment that actually registers. And once that happens, the hug is no longer just physical contact. It becomes emotional. But even then, there's one final detail that determines whether the moment ends smoothly or disappears completely. At this point, you understand the approach, the pressure, the contact, and the breath. You know what creates a strong moment. But here's the reality. Most men will still get this wrong. Not because they don't understand it, but because of how they behave in the moment. The biggest issue is rushing. Even when the hug starts well, most men treat it like something they need to get over with quickly. Their focus is not on the moment itself, but on what comes next. So they go through the motion without actually being present. And when you're not present, nothing lands. The hug becomes mechanical. There's no feeling behind it, no connection, no impact. Another mistake is overthinking. Some men become too aware of what they're doing. They start trying to control every detail, and instead of looking natural, their movements become stiff. They're thinking about where to place their hands, how long to hold, whether they're doing it right, and that tension shows. Because even if your actions are technically correct, if your energy feels forced, it breaks the moment. The interaction should feel easy, not calculated. There's also a third mistake that most men don't realize. They treat every hug the same. They don't adjust based on the situation, the level of comfort, or the connection they have with the woman. They either always go light, always go quick, or always try to do more than the moment calls for. But attraction doesn't work like that. It responds to awareness. If the moment is light, your hug should match that. If the moment is more comfortable, your hug can reflect that. When you match the energy instead of forcing it, everything feels more natural. Another reason men get this wrong is because they underestimate how much small details matter. They think attraction is built through big actions, through what they say, or through what they do later. But in reality, it's built in moments like this. Small, quick interactions that either feel right or feel slightly off, and those small differences are what shape how she sees you over time. So even if you understand the rules, the key is how you apply them. Not perfectly, but naturally. Because when it feels natural, it works. And when it works, the interaction moves forward without effort. But even if everything up to this point is done right, there's still one final moment that decides how she remembers it. And that's how you end it. This is the part almost no man thinks about, but it's the part that determines what she remembers. The exit. Most men focus on how the hug starts and what happens during it, but they completely ignore how it ends. And because of that, they lose the impact they just created in a matter of seconds. Think about how most hugs end. The moment is over, and they pull away quickly. Their hands drop immediately, eye contact breaks, and there's a sudden shift in energy. What felt connected a second ago now feels slightly awkward or disconnected. That quick change erases the feeling, because the last moment is what stays in her mind. So how you exit matters just as much as how you enter. The first thing is pace. Don't pull away abruptly. Let the movement be smooth and controlled. Not slow in an exaggerated way, but slower than usual. That slight delay communicates something important. It shows that you were present. It shows that you didn't rush the moment. And that alone makes the interaction feel more intentional. The second detail is your hands. Instead of lifting them off instantly, let them move naturally as you pull away. That small trailing motion creates a sense of continuity. It keeps the connection intact for a second longer instead of breaking it suddenly. It's subtle, but it makes a difference. Now here's the most important part: eye contact. When you pull away, your faces are close for a brief moment. Most men look away immediately, either out of habit or because they don't know what to do. But that's where they lose the connection. Instead, hold eye contact for a second or two. Not a stare, just a natural, relaxed look. And then add a small, genuine smile. That moment reinforces everything that just happened. It tells her that the hug was not just physical, it was shared. It leaves a positive emotional imprint that carries forward into the rest of the interaction. Another thing this does is create anticipation. When a moment ends well, it makes the next one more appealing. She begins to associate your presence with a good feeling, and that association builds over time. That's how attraction grows. Not in one big moment, but in small, consistent experiences that feel right. So don't rush the ending, because the way you exit is what determines how she remembers you. At this point, you've seen all 4 rules, but if you only focus on the steps, you'll miss what actually matters. Because this was never just about hugging. It was about how you show up in a moment. Most men think attraction is something complicated. They believe it comes from saying the right things, doing the right moves, or trying to impress. But the truth is much simpler than that. Attraction is built on how you make someone feel. And moments like a hug are where that feeling is created. What you've learned here is not about technique in the strict sense. It's about awareness. It's about understanding that even small interactions carry meaning, and that the way you handle them shapes how people experience you. When you approach with confidence, when your touch is steady and natural, when your presence is calm, and when you don't rush the moment, everything changes. Because now you're not just going through the motion, you're creating an experience. And that's what makes the difference. Another important thing to understand is that you don't need to be perfect. You don't need to think about every detail every time. In fact, the more you overthink, the more unnatural it becomes. What matters is that you understand the principles and allow them to guide how you act. Over time, it becomes automatic. You stop rushing. You stop hesitating. You stop treating these moments like they don't matter. And when that happens, your interactions start to feel different, more natural, more connected, more real. That's what women respond to. Not perfection, not effort, but presence. So the next time you hug a woman, don't treat it like a small, meaningless gesture. Pay attention to how you approach. Pay attention to how you hold. Pay attention to how you exit. And most importantly, pay attention to how she responds. Because those small details are where attraction starts. Now, I want you to do something simple. The next time you're in that moment, apply just one of these rules. Don't try to do everything at once. Just focus on one and observe what happens. You'll start to notice the difference, and once you see it, you won't go back to doing it the old way. Drop a comment and tell me which rule stood out to you the most. I read them, and I respond to as many as I can. And if this gave you a new way to understand attraction, make sure you subscribe. Because in the next video, I'm going to show you something that connects directly to this. How to tell if she wants you to get closer without her saying a word. And that's the moment most men miss.